This is Lisa from MobileTechReview, and this big honker is the Alienware Area 51M. This is like totally exciting. Okay, I've reviewed so many Alienware laptops. This is 8.5 pounds, so I'm going to put it down instead of flapping it around, but yeah. So what's so exciting about it? Alienware, since Dell bought them in 2006, has been kind of getting more and more mainstream, and like every other gaming laptop, other than the casing styling, which they make theirs uniquely, but in terms of the specs, how different was it from an MSI or an Asus? You get the idea. Because Alienware used to be known as a boutique PC maker that made these incredibly powerful, basically desktop machines crammed into an immense laptop, right? So that went away. And Origin PC, in fact, is one of the companies that still does that, and those are ex-Alienware employees that run that company. And we still see a few of those. There's some Clevo chassis, in fact, that have the desktop CPUs and all that. But finally, Alienware, under Dell's umbrella, is rediscovering their roots and doing something different, and something I think that they should. They still have things like the Alienware 15M and the 17M that we reviewed, which are trendy, not ultra thin and light, but fairly portable laptops with Intel 45-watt mobile 6-core CPUs. So this one here has a desktop CPU. You have a couple of different choices about which one you get. We have the top of the line, which is a Core i9-9900HK overclockable processor with an NVIDIA RTX 2080 card, which is the fastest card you can get for a laptop. It's the mobile GPU in this, as with all laptops. There's no desktop card that would possibly fit inside of a laptop. But the interesting thing is they're doing something sort of like MXM graphics card. That is, it's socketed and it's removable. So you could actually upgrade that too. We're going to look at it now. So almost 17.3-inch gaming laptops that have desktop CPUs. Not that there are many, you can count them on one hand, really. They're usually very thick and very chunky laptops. This one, not so much. It's 31.2 millimeters at the thickest point, so not that chunky, but it's thick enough that there is room, thank God, for cooling, because that is certainly imperative when you have a 95-watt desktop CPU inside, and in our case, that RTX 2080 card, the most powerful NVIDIA graphics card that's available right now. So the base model, which is $2,150, has a Core i7-8700 CPU. That's actually the same desktop CPU in that HP Omen Obelisk desktop that we reviewed. So that's not actually bad for that base price. But you get an NVIDIA RTX 2060 card. So that's the lowest end configuration. Probably if you're enough of enthusiasts to consider this kind of machine, you're probably not going to go with the 2060, but there's that. 16 gigs of DDR4, 2400 megahertz dual channel RAM. All these are dual channel, good times for that. And a 256 gig NVMe boot SSD. No hard drive. Those does have a hard drive bay. Obviously, you can upgrade the SSDs yourself. You can put in a hard drive. You can upgrade the RAM. Those things are pretty easy via the service door on the bottom of the laptop. If you want to bring that up to an RTX 2070, and I think that you probably do at the very least, that's going to be $2,800. They throw in a couple of extra little things there. You do get a 1 terabyte hybrid hard drive in the package as well. So our configuration is pretty much top of the line everything, and it's around $4,500. We have that Core i9-9900HK 8-core 95-watt CPU inside. We have 32 gigs of DDR4 dual-channel RAM. We have the NVIDIA RTX 2080. We have a 1 terabyte NVMe RAID 0 SSD. So that's two 512 gigs in a RAID configuration, and that's available even if you go less than top of the line if you want that. And a 1 terabyte hybrid hard drive inside. No matter what you order, though, you're going to get a 17.3-inch IPS full HD display, which is kind of a shame because full HD gaming, even with demanding games like Far Cry 5, it's child's play for these laptops. But, happily you have your display port, so you can just plug that right into a 4K monitor and game in 4K or 2K resolution if you want to do that. It's available in two colors, black and white, but of course they have marketing name for those. So you have Lunar Light for the white and Dark Side of the Moon for the black one. It's your usual Alienware kind of construction. It's a magnesium alloy frame inside for rigidity and soft touch panels on the outside. The build feels pretty strong and fairly tanky. If you push some of the panels, you'll get a little bit of flex on it, but by gaming laptop standards, it's pretty rigid, though I would say not quite as rigid as the Alienware 17. That's okay. I'll take the performance over a teeny loss of rigidity, though. The cooling on this, they call it cryotech cooling. So you've got, unfortunately, not vapor chamber cooling, which would be the apex of cooling, but you do have separated heat pipes for the CPU and the GPU. So that means your GPU is not going to sympathetically heat the CPU, which is a typical problem in a lot of gaming laptops. And you have massive ventilation out the backside, and the casing doesn't get that hot, even when gaming. The only place it does get hot is the rear exhaust area, which tells us that the exhaust flow is actually functioning as it should. So the heat goes out the back where it should. It does not stay in the laptop's chassis. So before we talk about anything else, let's talk about heat and noise, because that's really what you care about and what you're going to be worrying about with this. And like I said, it's surprising that Dell did such a good job. It's head and shoulders more impressive to me than the Alienware 17, which had a mobile CPU inside. When it comes to heat, surface temperatures are good. Like I said, the core temperatures is going to depend on what game you're playing and how much you're overclocking, because these are overclockable CPUs except for that base model configuration. I went with a mild overclock, so it's pretty neat to game, and you see at least being pegged at 4.9 gigahertz and sometimes up to 5.1 gigahertz. Core temperatures is something like Far Cry 5. It doesn't matter if it's 1080p or 4K, honestly. The core temps will go up into the 90s. Far Cry is a great way to heat up your laptop. So that's not wonderful. You know, we like to not get close to thermal maximum, but I didn't really see too much thermal throttling, if any, going on there, so that part's good. But built into the Alienware Command Center, besides the fact you can choose some of their canned overclocks, it's really easy to go in there and make it your own. So you don't even have to install Intel XTU or throttle stop. You can actually undervolt the CPU right inside that utility. So I just undervolted by a very modest 68 millivolts. And that really did a good job of bringing down core temperatures to the upper 80s to lower 90s in that game. Now, other games like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is much less demanding of the hardware, it was in the upper 70s to low 80s gaming at full HD at the highest possible settings. And moving it up to 4K really didn't stress it out much more because the GPU is feeling it more than the CPU. That's not so much an open world game. This is good stuff. This is surprising. When you see temperatures that are certainly not hotter than an Alienware 17 running a whole complete mobile setup inside of a desktop CPU, and in fact you're seeing cooler temperatures, they've done something good here. So does that mean that this thing is noisy? That depends. If you leave it at the default balanced mode for the thermal management, and Alienware Command Center has separate settings for the performance and for the cooling, which is nice, balance is pretty normal. If you're at idle or you're doing lightweight tasks, you won't even really hear the fans. If you're gaming, they'll come on and they'll ramp up pretty well. But you've got a couple of options. Quiet mode, if you really want to quiet, it's not necessary in my opinion though. But if you go up to like performance mode when you're gaming, the fan just runs at a steady state at high RPMs, and it is loud. You will fill the room with fan noise. So there it is. That's how it's staying cool, folks. That said, the Alienware 15 and 17 were just as loud when gaming, and they don't have nearly the powerful insides that this guy does. The keyboard is typical Alienware. It has the bevel side keys. If you're hoping for a chiclet island style keyboard, they're not doing that. I'm fine with it. It's a lovely feeling keyboard. I always like their keyboards. Just the right amount of dampening and spring. It has N-key rollover, nice travel on it. Per key RGB backlighting. It's good. The trackpad is Synaptics. It's not a Microsoft Precision trackpad. It has soft touch clickers, which I like. Doesn't take a lot of oomph like some MSI laptops. And it's not precision, but it feels pretty good to me. I have no complaints. Nice trackpad. The display on this, like I said, there is only one option. It's a competent display, and they're keeping prices down by not giving you an over-the-top lovely display. I wish they did have a 4K option. Origin PC does offer that, but the color gamut is typical of a premium laptop. Contrast ratio is good. It's not class-leading either. It's fine. It supports Tobii eye tracking, and I'm not a big fan of Tobii eye tracking in games. All that happens is, to me, it looks like somebody's been tapping my mouse and tapping my mouse. You don't realize that your eyes are moving a little bit here and there all the time until you have Tobii enabled. But the only thing I do like about it is it will wake up your machine when you step in front of it auto-magically. So it's kind of neat. You just walk there and the display lights up again. I don't think it's worth having Tobii, but it's there. Good thing about the display, though, is 144 Hz fast refresh display. Our particular panel is an LG, but typically Dell is a big company, so they may source other manufacturers' panels as well. And this is a G-Sync panel, which, given the performance level of the machine, is not imperative to have. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to have a problem syncing up the frames, but it's there. Other goodies include the usual Dell graphics amplifier port or Alienware graphics amplifier port. So what's nice about that is it has pretty good bandwidth and it's a pretty affordable solution compared to a lot of Thunderbolt 3 GPUs. In terms of the enclosure, sometimes you can find it as cheap as $250. But there is Thunderbolt 3 on board as well. We have Killer E3000 2.5 gigabit Ethernet and Killer 1550 Wi-Fi, which is a rebranded Intel card. So for you Killer haters, you can feel good about that. Obviously, a good number of ports on this. It's a fairly large chassis. It's not a mind-boggling amount of ports, but you've got what you need. You've got HDMI, you have DisplayPort, you've got your USB-A ports. The speakers on this, they're stereo speakers, but I'm not super impressed with them. They get pretty loud, but they lack any bass, and they don't have a subwoofer. Usually in this size class, if you're looking at something like the MSI Titan, or surprisingly, even the MSI GE75 Raider manages to have a 4-driver audio system, or the ASUS ROG G703GX that we reviewed, which is their big desktop replacement, but with a mobile CPU, not a desktop. Those have subwoofers. This doesn't. So, yeah, even listening to me on our YouTube channel playing that, I sound a little thin and tinny, and the bass registers are missing from my voice. So there's headphones for that. Given the fan noise, you're probably going to be using headphones. So how's your carbon footprint? Obviously, our carbon footprint with this laptop is not too impressive, though it can sort of be impressive. Yes, it comes with 2 adapters. Interestingly enough, it's a 330-watt adapter, which looks like every other 330-watt ginormous 3-pound gaming laptop adapter you've seen, and a little 180-watt one. So put those together, we've got 510 watts of power, which is actually adequate. It will not discharge when you're gaming. It always consumes just under 500 watts if you're doing max load on, so that's fine. This little 180-watt, though, is to make it somewhat more portable if you're just dragging this thing around for productivity kind of use. So you can actually avoid having it discharge if you're just doing things like Word, Excel, surfing the web. You get the idea, Slack, whatever it is that floats your boat for productivity and lightweight work, even for streaming video. So there it is. We have a 90-watt-hour battery inside, which is a very large battery, but let's face it, we have a desktop CPU and an RTX 2080 card here, so, and G-Sync, so yeah, dedicated GPU on all the time. Yeah, a couple of hours away from the AC outlet if you're doing very lightweight tasks, and that's about all you're going to get out of it. But for something like this, a desktop replacement, you don't really expect a whole lot more, do you? Beyond the per-key RGB backlighting, of course, this is an Alienware, so you have configurable lighting all over the place. I particularly like the ring around the rear exhaust area, or the laptop's butt, if you will. So yeah, you've got Tron lighting, and you can customize it on, off, what colors you want. You get the idea. It's kind of fun stuff, including the trackpad. I love their light-up trackpads. Easy to find in the dark. Anyway, getting inside, it's really easy until it isn't. I'll tell you what I mean. But first, here's the bottom lid, nice honeycomb, big ventilation area. That is good stuff. So not many screws to remove, just the ones that you can see right here. And then you yank, and it takes a good yank to pull this up, and it'll seem traumatic, but it's okay. And you can see the tabs where it fits in there. And there's our easy access internals, which is typical of what Alienware has been doing for a while now. So there's the 90-watt-hour battery right there. This is our hard drive bay. You could put a 2.5-inch SSD in here as well if you wish to. Very large fans, really nice sculpted turbine design, these fans here. I think this is 60 millimeter. Good stuff there. So here's our RAM, and the nice thing about the RAM is that it is easily accessible, all of it. You know, we've seen ASUS with that G703GX, MSI with some of their laptops making 2 slots accessible and 2 that are just about impossible to get to unless you take the motherboard out and flip it. So you don't have to do that here. All 4 slots are easily accessed. This is our Wi-Fi card right over here, and 2 M.2 SSD slots with NVMe matching drives inside because we have RAID 0, and we've got a heatsink on top of each of those. Those drives do run cool, the heatsink works, and they're not too close to anything else hot. So that's great stuff. So this part is easy, but as with all Alienwares, if you want to, say you want to repaste your CPU and GPU, and really admire your heatsinks completely, except for just the little part that shows through here, then you have to do more taking apart. So to take this thing completely apart so you can access the upgradable CPU, repaste the heatsink, all that sort of stuff, there's a lot of disassembly, which has been typical of Alienwares for a while, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. As usual, taking off this back cover over here is required. It's not that hard. There's 4 screws here, 2 on the back, on the butt that you can see, and the aft illumination cable has to be disconnected, which is pretty well labeled. So you take that off. You're going to have to take the battery out, which isn't a bad idea anyway, to disconnect power because some of its mounting screws go over this inner frame that we're going to be removing. Looks like the hard drive can stay in place, which is nice and refreshing. You do have to remove one of the two, if you have two, SSDs, the one right over here as well, because you see this cover is going to come up. All right, we're going to continue taking things apart. One thing I will say, there are cables you have to disconnect, and they're very well labeled, like the camera cable, and happily they have little grabby areas on them, and they're all kind of nice normal connectors. Nothing tricky, no bayonet kind of flippy things like MSI uses that are easy to break. And 10 minutes later, we've unscrewed, or I've unscrewed all of the screws all around the frame over here, taken out the Wi-Fi card because, well, yeah, see how the cable routes over here? Disconnected the Tobii light, rather, and everything is really well marked. It's pretty easy to do, I have to say. Peeled off the cable from the rear, unscrewed a little metal plate that's back there because this overlaps and holds down, so it's not as bad as it seems. But the only way that it is bad is that the whole point of this is that it's got this upgradable CPU, and here the CPU is under this, and if we look from the side, we'll show you the side view, you can see the usual bayoneted CPU, which means there's a lever, open it, and you can pop out the CPU and put another one in there. That's a lot of work to get to something that is famous for being upgradable at this point, right? And our GPU here, see this cable right there, it says DGFF. It's not using an MXM card anymore. That's a new format for a connector, but the graphics card is also socketed. So say you can only afford an RTX 2060, but you'd love to have a 2080 down the road. You could do that. Generationally, we don't know what's going to happen with the next generation of cards, if they're going to be able to maintain compatibility. Also, typically with these kind of cards, you're probably not going to see anything aftermarket. You're probably going to have to rely on Dell. The good thing about Dell is they have good scale of manufacture, so their prices are pretty good, but typically socketed graphics cards, mobile graphics cards and laptops are pretty darn expensive, $600, $700, sometimes $800, so yeah. So obviously very large desktop replacement style gaming laptops aren't for everybody, whether it's because the price is too much for you or because the dimensions are too much for you. But if you are considering that sort of product, I have to say this really gives the competition or run for the money when it comes to something like the MSI Titan or the Asus ROG G703GX. Those machines are equally as big, equally as heavy. In fact, some of them are actually thicker and heavier, and they have mobile CPUs inside, whereas this one has a more powerful desktop GPU, and the pricing is pretty similar across the line, so yeah. So that's the Alienware Area 51M. Duh, it's not cheap, right? These kind of super high-end, crazy powerful laptops aren't, but they're not priced much differently from the competition that does offer desktop CPU endowed laptops. And the starting price at $2,150 is actually not terrifying by gaming laptop standards, so undoubtedly you, me, and all of us really want to get the more powerful configurations that will push you up around $3,500 or so. But still, they have done a very good job of the cooling. I'm actually shocked because Alienware's 15s and the 17s have been hot running, and I haven't been that impressed with the cooling. I think they sacrificed that for the thinness. Not so much here, even though the chassis size and weight really aren't much different from the Alienware 17 that we've known and reviewed and used for years now. The performance on this is simply madness. It's right up there, like I said, with our HP Omen Obelisk, and we have the high-end configuration there. The fact that it can do that, not melt down, and maintain good clock speed, wow. I like this a lot. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.